Hi, this is Editor Troxel. In today's tutorial, we're actually going to troubleshoot a script. In this particular case, the person wrote a script that is supposed to create a track above the track with a selected item, and then create a copy of that event on that new track that's above. So let's demonstrate where the problem is located. If we have just the first event selected and we run the script, then it creates a track above the current event and copies that event to that new track. Now let's say we select the second event. It appears it is creating two new tracks below the existing track and then copying that event to both tracks. And that is not what we want happened. It should be above, just like the single first event was. So now that we see what is happening, let's see if we can figure out why. We're going to kind of just ignore this stuff right now, but we do have a same track equals false. Then we're going to go for each track, my track and myvegas.project.tracks. And then we've got a new variable called track index to add, which is being set to -1. So this is telling us where we want to add the track eventually. And then same track is being set to false. And then for each event in mytrack.events, if it is not the same track, which the first time through it will not be, and if the track index to add is less than 0, which we just set it to -1, so it is, then it's going to set the track index to add equal to mytrack.index. Otherwise, it's going to simply increase the index number. And then if the event is selected, it's going to go through and create the new track and create it in the proper place and all that kind of stuff. So let's go back and look at what it's really doing here. If the first event is selected, then our track index to add is -1, same track is false, it's not the same track, and our track index to add is less than 0, so it's setting it to the first track. The track mytrack.index would be 0, and the else will be ignored. And if the first event is selected, then it is not audio, so we would come down here. If not same track, then it's going to add the new track, in this case at position 0, which will be above the first track, and then it will add that new track in, and then we are copying that event to that new track, and we set that new event selected to true, and then same track is set to true, event selected is set to false. What we've done at this point is, if this one is selected, we've created a new video track above, we've copied this one because it was the one selected, we've copied it to the track above, we've selected this one, and we've deselected this one, which is exactly what we wanted and how the script worked. Now let's see what happens when the second one is selected and the first one is not. So now we're going through for each track, set our track index to -1 like we did before, same track equals false. Then for each track event in mytrack.events, if not same track, and it's not the same track, if track index is less than 1, we set it equal to 0. We skip the else because we use the if part. If event is selected, well, the event is not selected. The first event is not selected, so we come down here and we skip all of this. So now we come back up here. If it is not the same track, and it's still not the same track because we did not change same track, we're going to come down here. If event.trackIndex is less than 0, well, it's not less than 0, it is 0. So we come down here to else, and we increment it. So now our track index to add is 1. the event is selected. It is not audio, so we're going to come down here. It is not the same track, so now we're going to add a new track in position 1. Remember, 0 adds it above the first track. 1 will create it as the second track. And then we are going to copy the event to that second track, set it equal to true, then same track equals true. The current event that we have selected is false, and we're going to come back through the loop again. So now, instead of creating a track above the current track, we've created the track below the current track. Since that was the only one selected on this track, we're going to come back to for each track. Now we're going to look at that new track. We set track index to add to -1, same track equals false for each event in this new track that we just created. If it's not the same track, which we just set to false again, and if index is less than 0, which it is, now we're going to set it equal to myTrack.index, which now we're looking at the second track, so the index is 1. If the event is selected, which it is because we just selected it, then we're going to come down here. It's not the same track, so we're going to add a new track in the 1 position, which adds the track above that new track. Then we copy that new event, set the selected equal to true, same track equal true, event.selected equals false, and we continue on down. So if you look to see what happens here when this second one is selected and we run it, it actually, on the first time through, created track 3 and copied this event down to here. Then on the second time through, because this new track was now there, it processed this track and then it added the new track above the way we were expecting, which then it copied the event to here. It didn't add 2 below, it added 1 below and then 1 above that new one that it added below. In fact, let's try selecting this third one here and see what happens. You'll see now it created a track below the audio, which would be our track 4 in this case. It created this track below the audio because it skipped 2 tracks. And then it added the new track. When it processed track, what was 3 at the time, it created a new track 3 and copied it up to this track. So the question becomes, how can we fix this? Well, the simplest solution is this right here. If this is not inside the event loop, then we're okay. So let's take this and cut it, and then we will paste it right here. That way it's not going to change for every event that we look at. So by moving this out, let's see what happens. We select the first one, and it works as expected by creating 1 above. Select the second one, and now it works as expected by creating on the track above. We'll even check the third one. And it still creates the track above. And in fact, there is another way to solve that problem, and that is to never increment it for no reason. And in this case, we have this else track index to add plus plus. If we just remove that, let's see what we get. So we select the first one, it adds it properly on the track above. Select the second one, it adds it properly on the track above. Select the third one, and it adds it correctly on the track above. So I hope this helped you learn how you can troubleshoot. Sometimes you just have to manually go through it and maybe on paper even write down what is changing and where is this track going to be added. So in this particular case, it appeared that it was adding 2 below, but in reality it was adding 1 below and then 1 above that track. So the second time it was actually adding correctly above, but we didn't want it to do it a second time, and we didn't want the first time to be below. So I hope you found this tutorial useful on how you can go through and troubleshoot an issue that could be happening that you're unsure why it's happening. Sometimes it's best to just kind of manually go through the steps and see what it's really doing. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.